Hey everybody, and welcome to the Johansson show. It's Kurt, and today I've got another special guest as we look into the Danish professional wrestling scene once more. He is the part owner of Copenhagen Championship Wrestling. He is the CCW Heavyweight Champion, Sebastian Day. Sebastian, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Kurt.
Now, really excited. Obviously, this kind of got arranged through mutual friend with Luke Sharp, who I recently interviewed looking into the Danish wrestling scene, and he had a lot to say about CCW and like how much he loves it in Denmark. And so it's going to be great learning more about CCW, but also about your career as well, like being the two-time CCW champion. It'll be great to hear your journey through the Danish wrestling scene.
Yeah, this will start off funny because my wrestling career started with me having an Irish gimmick.
I did see that. So whilst you mentioned that, I want to get straight into it because if I'm right in thinking, was it Sean St. Patrick used?
It changed name a few times. It started out with the just Sean Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Then we changed it a bit to just Sean, and then was a guy said, "Oh, we want to be Sean St. Patrick." I was like, I don't give a damn anymore about the name. So,
am I right in thinking the nickname was Gary?
Yeah, the Irish Danish bastard. Yeah, and a lot of guys. The guy who owns Danish Pro Wrestling, Kim Kjærs Tinning, he didn't expect it to go go well. He said, "Okay, just go with it," but I don't expect the guys and the audience to believe it. I run it for 2 years where the crowd actually believed I was from Ireland. So, and then it run out a bit because in the beginning I had green tights, short red hair, and a small beard. And it fitted. It just fitted, and it was something that wasn't there in the Danish wrestling scene. I tried to stand out. That's what I've been told to try and pro wrestling stand out, be something nobody else is. And then was like, okay, then I'll go for Irish gimmick. Then I am the only regular foreign guy who people don't even know is a Dane. And I was actually when I began wrestling for DPW, they have this training camp called Fake or Break, which they expect people in Denmark to go on. And I've been on for this year. It was canceled for obvious reasons, but I was on it for the last 4 years in a row. And I was invited to participate in the juniors tournament, as they called it. And I was like, yeah, matches, that's great. 5 minutes matches, but matches.
Yeah.
I was told, oh, you're just gonna be in it. No honest spot for you later on. Let's see what's gonna happen. 6 months later, I was told, yeah, you're gonna win the tournament. So went from being a guy who was not expected to do anything to be the next big talent. That's going pretty well, I think. Got a title shot for the light heavyweight title against a guy I respect a lot called Christian Daugård or Kuhlkred. He's a Danish wrestling legend. I say he's wrestled for 15 years until he stopped. Even though I lost the match, it was the best match ever. Even though he hit me in the solar plexus twice with an elbow drop. And then it evolved a bit. I became a bit more like steampunk transition with the Irish. I felt that fitted a bit better. Got into some strange feud with people. And then I had this revelation when CCW came around. They didn't want me to have this Irish character, so they wanted me to have the Danish character. So we agreed upon in DPW, okay, we need to kill it now. So I was booked in a best of 3 matches series with a guy called Johnny Casanova for the light heavyweight title again. And we had to choose our matches. He chose a kind of a striptease match. Which I cheated a lot. I just put on 20 layers of clothing, hot as hell, so in. And I picked a bar brawl, and that's still the only, I think, bar brawl inside a real bar that has been produced in European wrestling. So we did it in like 5 in the morning. in Randers. No people at all on the streets. I got busted open on the bar by getting my head slammed on the bar, and drowned in a toilet. So, and then
Very fair.
and then cap it off.
What was everybody's like reaction to you? What was everyone's reaction to you using an Irish gimmick then to begin with?
That I was surprised. People actually loved it to begin with. They cheered a lot of time. Denmark is like we have these small islands of like Sjælland, where Copenhagen is, and then DPW is on like the main part that's connected to Germany, and we don't like see things the same way. We have you have in Great Britain with the different countries that you have. We to do internal jokes on each other, and I didn't expect any of them to believe that I was Irish. They would see straight through it and believe I was from Copenhagen. No, they loved it and actually believed I was Irish for, as mentioned, 2 years. And Kim Chaos said, "Okay, this is surprising. They actually believe it." The crowd loved to hate me because I, again, apparently wasn't like what they used to see. They've seen all the Danish wrestlers for many years in a row. So when there's suddenly a regular guy who's from Ireland who's always there, who's not like, oh, he's only here like every maybe 10th show or something, because they need the money to book them. So people loved it, and was disappointed that I cut the gimmick. Some people want me to do it again, but I don't think that would return. Maybe a bit of a rip-off, maybe when I turn a bad guy at some point. It worked well with the steampunk thing, I actually believe. Again, because nobody does that thing. A lot of people in Germany does it apparently, but not in Denmark, which I feel like that would fit well. It's like, the unexpected, or don't see that much.
How did you feel adjusting to a new character then? Like, did it take you a bit to get used to?
Yeah, it took me it took me a bit of a while, because as the Irish character, I was mainly a bad guy, so I get to do a lot of stuff in the matches. And this Sebastian Day character that I am today is a babyface, struggling babyface character that gets to do a small bit of stuff in the matches, but usually just get beat up. So you have to go from being like the guy who's mainly in a control of the match and be like on top of it and work the match, to be the guy who gets all the shit. And the facial expression, the crowd work is so different when you go from a bad guy to a good guy. And when you have to be this all day, like an all American, I'm like an all day Dane. You really need to rethink what you're doing. And when you walk around doing an Irish character and all this, and has to transition to a Danish character, you really have to also think like the gear, the moveset, everything. So it was a tough transition.
Which character do you prefer?
I actually prefer doing Sebastian Day because I feel more comfortable now with it, since I've been doing it for the
It's
past.
more of yourself.
It's more myself, yeah, and I also can feel like work a bit more with it. Even though, again, the Danish crowd said they loved the Irish character, maybe I didn't at the end like it so much myself, because again, it's also what you feel comfortable with, and now I feel very comfortable being this Sebastian Day character because it's more me. It's more regular me.
Yeah. So you mentioned like this, the Irish gimmick. It started with DPW in Dansk Pro Wrestling. So how did you get started in wrestling to begin with, and what was your first? I will go to that question actually, because a lot of people that I've interviewed from the Danish scene, that their route into wrestling and the first exposure to wrestling has been very different. So when was the first time you came across wrestling and thought, right, this is what I'm going to be doing?
Yeah, that's I've remembered clearly to this day still. The very first wrestling show I ever watched was a Monday Night Raw taping from a Monday Night Raw show from December 2004. It was shown with a month delay here in Denmark back then, so it was in 2005. I saw my first show. It was the Raw where they had a storyline just after Survivor Series, where some guys have won control of Raw each week.
Yeah.
To the 2005 New Year's Revolution Elimination Chamber. So that show was the one where Triple H lost the title after a triple threat with Edge and a guy I don't like to mention. Um, that I remember that clearly, and I just as soon as I saw Triple H has been my main favorite wrestler forever, even though it sounds cheesy, but I like him, and it's just the first time I saw it was like I want to be that. I just that connected immediately. Um, and my first exposure to wrestling itself may be a bit different from other guys in Denmark because, as mentioned, I live in Copenhagen, and wrestling in Copenhagen didn't start for reals before like 5 years ago.
Okay.
So before that was only Danish Pro Wrestling. That's on the other side of Denmark, which is like 4 hours of travel from Copenhagen. Even though Denmark looks small, it's still a far trip to do.
Yeah,
So
it's hard with all the different connecting routes, isn't it?
yeah, bus lines, trains, everything. This is like shit. So I think it was in '09 or 10, the DPW started a division in the Copenhagen side of the Danish of Denmark, Sjælland, down in a town called Køge.
Okay.
And I started training there together with some guys. Some of them don't wrestle anymore. Some of them do. It's complicated. Some of them chose to leave, and there was some bad stuff.
Yeah.
But that was my first exposure to wrestling. So I was like maybe 15, 16 years old when I began. The very first training I have what was serious was with Chaos. I actually injured my knee. My meniscus got injured, and I couldn't do pretty much anything in wrestling.
Yeah.
And I got a surgery 3 years later that fixed it. But it took a long time before I returned to wrestling because I got this knee injury. I was unsure of myself after that, and then Hangman actually helped me get back on the horse and get back to this self-confidence level to actually be able to do this, because a lot of people think wrestling is just training. It's also a lot about the self-confidence you have in what you do. And when I got injured, I got so uncertain of myself because it just pretty much blew out my knee just doing a roll on a mat. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, if I go into a ring, what the fuck would I do to myself then? So I took a long break from wrestling, just cut all ties to it, and just tried to focus on myself and returned to wrestling when CCW actually began showing up 5 years ago, and that's where I also did the Fake and Break camp and began doing this for real again. Got the ball rolling.
How's the knee at the moment? Like when it comes to like knees, I can sympathize for like different football injuries. Like I've done ACLs and MCLs, and I get the confidence thing. I remember like 'cause I'd briefly done some training here in the UK, and at the time I was a professional football coach, and I ended up damaging my knee, and I tore the ligaments and tendons in my ankle, and I was like, okay, so work weren't happy that I did that in football, anyways. But then when I'd finally gone back to like the training, I was just so unsure of it. I was like, it's not work. 'Cause if I roll over and do it again, it's my living that's gonna like I'll be in deep water with my job. It's one thing getting injured playing football when you're a football coach, but if I get injured training to be a wrestler whilst I'm a football coach, they're not gonna ain't gonna take well. But so, what was it like when you first went back, started training again with the knee and stuff like that?
It was difficult because doing bumps, even though it's on a mattress, doing a bump after that point 3 4 years was difficult because again, first time is again the mindset of landing on the back, just
Yeah,
throw yourself on the back. You have to get that back again, and the knee, even though I got surgery on it, I can still feel it, and I don't take painkillers for it at all. I don't like to do that. Just walk it off, as I say. At least it's not as painful as it was before the surgery. And then I got when I got back, I spent a lot of time trying to again get this self confidence in, and it was tough. It was very tough to return, and even though it was small training once a week, you could still feel it. And I slowly got the passion back for it. I never stopped watching wrestling, but the passion for being a wrestler, as mentioned, disappeared a bit. but they got back again because of the atmosphere from the guys who's part of Copenhagen Championship Wrestling. They helped a lot with my, as you can say, need to return or feeling about returning. So,
Yeah.
but it was still a bit of a strange thing because again, you didn't do it for a long time and you want to get back after what you just did. It took a toll, but I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I returned back because now I'm at a place I never believed I would be inside the pro wrestling business. So if I didn't do it, imagine where I would be today.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason. Like even if you stayed in, like your position might be different. Like you don't know where you'd have been, and it's always good to look in hindsight. But I think everything does happen for a reason, and it seems like you are doing a lot for Danish wrestling at the moment. Which again, we'll get into your role with CCW. But what was your debut match then? So like you with Dansk Pro.
Actually, my debut match was not with Danish Pro Wrestling. It was with no promotion. It was a special show. We have this festival in Copenhagen called Copenhagen. It's semi-famous now because they get a lot of metal bands in. Back then they had a wrestling show in, I think since it's 5 years, it was 14. They had a wrestling show and they wanted one the next year.
Yeah.
And that was 6 months after I returned to training. So I was asked if I could do a freeway pre-show match. So I didn't have a character. I didn't have a name. We wasn't announced or anything. So and we went out there and did a freeway. Me, a guy called Phoenix, who's today Pete Phoenix from.
Okay. Yeah.
He had a master back then, so that was fun. And a guy who sadly doesn't wrestle anymore today called Philip. He was actually a big fella. He was 16 years old and half head taller than me, and just a big dude. And I was sad that he stopped after that. He stopped after that match. I don't know why, sadly. And when we were told about this match, it was like 2 months before the festival. We were told that everybody else would get a festival ticket. We were going to pay for ourselves to get this match. And it was like, yeah, fair enough. And it turned out that a 3-day festival ticket was cheaper than just buying a 1-day. So I got a festival out of the trip also. That was fun. And this show was actually also a funny story because we come in Saturday morning at like 7. They open this festival at 12. And there's 3 days it goes on, so it's a limited time festival kind of thing. And we were in there. We set up the ring that comes from Sweden. There is some guys coming in from Body Slam Pro Wrestling back then. Some guys from Sweden, and then we got a guy from Finland called Heimo the Wild Man coming in also. And we set up the ring. We put up some fences, so like maybe a half a meter away from the ring, just barely, so people can walk around the ring. And while we were backstage preparing and all this dude from the festival comes over to us and said, "Okay, is everybody here?" Yeah. Okay. Now you're gonna see where you can get something to drink. A lot of guys were thirsty. It was a pretty hot summer, and then he takes out to like a shipping container. A big shipping container. And then he says, "Okay, can you see that plastic over there? Yeah, everything on that side, on the other side of the plastic, you may not touch. Everything else is for you." It was just like half of a container filled with soda, alcohol, vodka.
Amazing.
It was just crazy. And I think it was like 5 minutes after the show ended or something. I just see the wild man come out with a case of beer, ready to drink. So it was a fun show, and the triple threat match. It was just like you probably have seen it in Scotland, like basic trainees going out to do a match. And And we did this triple threat match where we tried to build this big guy up as a big guy, of course. I was chose to go over. I don't know why. I was the cheesy heel. I was actually expecting to be the guy who put somebody over, but. And then we planned this match out like a few weeks before, and I learned from this match a very, very big thing: scout the area around the ring when you have to wrestle. Because I was thrown out of the ring during this match, and before the show I hadn't scouted around the ring. It turned out it was concrete, that was around the ring. So I was thrown out of the ring, and as I flew out, saw, oh shit, it's concrete. So I just got the bottom rope, and probably was lucky I didn't break my ankle on my wrist on the landing, because it landed on a strange face bump. I was so happy that show wasn't recorded at that point, because it was stupid never to do that, and I learned immediately. Okay, from now on, just check around the ring, just see how it is. And we actually saw that people came into this tent. It was like a beer garden tent that we have this show in. So it was funny to do this pre-show match with two young yokers who has never wrestled before, and people actually came from the festival music over to see the wrestling.
Oh, amazing.
So that was actually a fun first experience.
Yeah,
And
I
then
can imagine.
I wrestled for DPW in this junior division. It was mainly pre-show matches, sports spots. My first match was a show in Copenhagen in a venue called Amagerbio. Small 5-minute pre-show match. Funny story, planning this match with the guy I'm going to face took like forever. And I asked him many times before the match, do you remember the stuff? Do you remember what to do? And all this, yeah, I got it. And then as soon as we do the log up, he just tells me I forgot everything. So I'm so lucky sometimes with my opponents, but we made it through. It was only 5 minutes, but it was just like, okay, this is gonna be the first singles match to have where the guys just forgot everything that we just planned. So and then it's just been building up. My first like real match that I have was actually for CCW Wrestling, and the very first show we had called Sinners versus Saints. I was supposed to face a guy who couldn't make it. He got injured. So I was put together with Pete Phoenix.
Yeah.
And in CCW, we have this. We like to have storylines. We like to build our shows on stories that our crowd like to return to. We get to that point a bit later on. But I was told that this was just a one-off match between me and Pete. There was no plan for a feud or storyline or anything. It was just because our opponents couldn't show up that day. I told to Pete that, okay, I have this Danish flag that I bring in, the cheap pop thing to do. I told him, okay, you when you're in the match, take the flag when you leave. Steal it. Show off. Be a dick, as you say. And he does this. He steals the flag. He's, as you say, a dick to me, and all this. Attacked me after the match also, actually. And then suddenly our booker at that point came over to us and said, okay, we're going to run a feud with you. Small feud, not long over this flag. So suddenly we went from no feud to a feud over this flag. And this feud went on to last for 2.5 years.
Wow.
And there is a lot of stuff that there will probably a lot of mention of precisely this feud when we talk CCW, because that was our main storyline in the beginning. So funny thing, from going from nothing to a 2.5 year long feud, that was pretty fun.
And it's safe to say, like, so would you say you've got really good chemistry with Pete?
I believe we have amazing chemistry. I love wrestling with Pete. I love wrestling with him because he's so fluent. He's amazing talent. He's one of the best talents in Denmark, I believe. And he knows what he's doing as a heel wrestler. He doesn't overdo his moves. He tries to simplify it.
Yeah.
But when he overdo the moves, he knows exactly when to do it. And he gets the crowd reactions on the spot on points that you want them. And he's just a lovely kid, as I call him also. So working with him is a joy, except when he smack a fucking chair in your face. That hurt a lot. When you get a chair thrown in your face that boos out by him, that hurts a lot. But the chemistry with me and his matches is awesome. We never do the same match twice. We always try to be like, okay, we did that last time, let's do something new. So he's great. And even though I like working with him and all this, right now as a booker, try to keep us apart after this long feud. So I'm excited to maybe in a few years now. We don't do many shows, so it will be probably a few years, but be back to working with him again. So because that's some of my best matches I have with that guy. That's for sure.
Oh, brilliant. So before we get on to just purely the CCW stuff, I know you mentioned with DPW winning the tournament was a real big thing for you. Like, what other top highlights with DPW do you have, and what were some of your favorite matches under that umbrella?
There's actually been that's quite a hard question actually, because one of my big moments is the tournament win because it was in Copenhagen. I got to win it, and that's the only show my family have ever watched in wrestling. They have never returned to it since because they don't like seeing me be beaten up by people or the other way around. So, but that was pretty proud that they actually get to see that. One of the best matches I had is with Carlos Zamora. Was actually his first real match, which was the next show after I won this tournament.
Yeah.
We had this show match between me and him. It wasn't the biggest match we have done because he just started. I just became a main roster member. But that was a good match. Then we had a 6-man tag team match about a year after this. It was me, Zach Gibson, and a guy in a mask called Mirage, who was light heavyweight champ at that point. I think he was light heavyweight champ. Don't hang me up on this. Versus Carlos Zamora, Christian, the guy who was light heavyweight champ when I won the tournament. So that's why I'm a bit confused who was the light heavyweight champ because they switched it around a lot back then. And then a French guy called Pierre Lepif, or something. I think that's his name. I don't really know how to pronounce his name, sadly. And I really loved this 6-man tag team match because Zach was in there, and that was the first time I ever got to meet Zach Gibson. I knew who he was, and get to work with him and be on team with him was just amazing. And me and Carlos worked some stuff in the match that we have been training, a lot of stuff that we have been training ourselves outside CCW. And after the match, Zach went over to us and said he loved me and Carlos's chemistry because we knew that, okay, it was a 6-man tag, was not a single, so we need to build up this moment when new people come in. And he said we did that perfectly, so that was a high moment for me too. And then probably, even though I will regret saying this, but my favorite match as a Sebastian Day character in DPW is against Michael Schinkenberg from Germany.
Yeah.
Even though the match, he kicked me in the throat during the match by accident. But I still love that match because it built up pretty well. This babyface struggling character that's just by an inch of his life beats this pumped up German guy who's today is the DPW heavyweight champ. So that's why I'm also a bit proud of it. I'm the only guy who has pinned him in the last year and a half in DPW. So, so that's my favorite matches and moments so far in DPW. Hopefully there will be more.
Yeah. What's the contrast in styles then between DPW and CCW?
Oh, there's a big contrast. DPW is very family friendly wrestling, very like no cursing, no nothing, no F fingers and all this, no nothing, and they're not like what I say strict about how they book their shows, but they're very like time concerning and very strict about people staying within the time limit of their matches.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I understand them because sometimes people went over matches huge. I've experienced guys went over matches like 15 minutes over time, which is insane. But they're very family orientated, so that's what they focus on. CCW is more like an underground, adult, more realistic fight feeling.
Yeah.
Because I have this that when I grew up watching pro wrestling, I studied like the hell out of it. And when I could see that pro wrestling went from being a bit more like real fighting to all this fake fighting, we would like to go a bit back again to not like kill each other, but where people believe, okay, they're actually doing this for real. Their passion is real. They want to do this for real. They're giving us not just a show. They're actually giving us a fight here. And that's the big contrast, of course, also since we are adult wrestling, we can say what we want, we can do what we want. We do a bit more hardcore matches. DPW still does that, but on a low scale, of course. So it's there's a big contrast in what we do. We also, when I book shows, I tend to say to people, okay, um, your match I've booked today, I have no certain finish on it. I don't have anything like strict I want you to do. So you have 10 minutes match time. Go out, impress me.
Okay.
Because I have seen this DPW style where they say to people, you need to do this and so. It it tends to hold people back when they're wrestlers. A lot of talented wrestlers feel like they will be holding back because they are not allowed to do all the stuff they actually
Yeah.
can. Of course, you're not going out and everybody do a 450 splash. That wouldn't make sense. But if you can do it in the good way of building the match up to this point, go out and do it. Go
Yeah.
out and impress the people because you want them to come back and see you again. And if they just see the same from everybody, they'll be like, that's not fun. That's not cool. But if you go out and do something extraordinary, then they will like to return and see you again. So
Yeah.
and that's where I have great examples in guys called Hype Boy and Ghost, which is two young Danish wrestlers who is in the age of 15, 16 years old.
Oh wow.
They can do the most insane things. I only dream about doing like 450 springboards, 450. This is insane. And when I booked them the very first time was a very small show that we did. We did a summer cup once, and they had a freeway match with another guy. I told them, okay, you guys, you need to go out because it was a determined finals that we were holding. It was like the break between the semifinals and the finals. I told them, even though the finals after you, go out and try to steal the show. Go out and impress me, so I want to book you guys again afterwards. They've been on the show ever since.
No, that's amazing. It's good to see that, you know, when people use their own creativity. So when you say, right, this is your time slot, go out there, I've not got the finish, do you tell them who you want to win? Or at that point, are you like, right, just choose it between yourselves?
Yeah, I've only done that a few times,
Yeah.
but that's because when I see our storylines, I also see, okay, I don't want people to feel like a loser where they lose all the time. So if I see
Yeah.
some guy who's lost like 10 shows in a row, it's like, okay, you need a win now. I've only done it a few times because it's been matches where it's been like, shit. We had Starbuck versus Chaos last year at a Ragnarok show, and I was like struggling to say, okay, who's gonna win this match because both of them is respected wrestlers that everybody knows what they can do. Um, I couldn't put a finish on. I told them, you figure it out. I can't say anything right now because I would tend to disrespect any of one of them. I know. So they figured it out, which of course also was confusing for our sound guy because he didn't know what music was supposed to be played. So
Yeah.
um, but that's also why I tend not to do it because it confuses our crew a bit. But it's fun to do. I also did it last year with me and Chaos because when I lost the title the first time it was a 2 hour loss pretty much where I lost the title in the beginning of the show to Chaos and won it back later on. It wasn't supposed to be that. I would like to admit it was supposed to be a longer thing where he was supposed to have the title for a few months, but he was booked for outer shows precisely on the dates there are shows. The next shows were planned,
Uh,
and my promoter he wanted to put the title on Chaos out of respect because he now said they was going to win it. So it's like okay then. Even though I don't want to book this, it's gonna be Vince Russo booking, but we're gonna do it. So we did this short title run for him, and I didn't tell anybody that he was going to win the title at the beginning of the show. So when we did a opening segment where he challenged me, won the title in like 30 seconds because he kicked me in the balls and all this kind of shit. And then I go up to the locker room, and people's like, "Where's the title?" Oh, it's there. And then Chaos comes from the other side. He went through the crowd and ran through the back way up to the locker room, and they're like, "Is he champ?" It's like, "Yeah, he just won it. He just." They were so confused and like, oh, it was so funny. So, but that's a few times I've done it.
yeah.
I mainly put on, of course, who's going to win, who's going to lose, so we can make sense of it. Also, looking on who has momentum with the crowd and all this. So, but yeah, that's the thing about booking shows. You have all the fun, but also all the hardship of having people in your ear afterwards when you have book shows.
Well,
So
what's that been like for you then? Because again, you're still in ring talent, but what's you mentioned something like the pros where you've given somebody a chance and then they've absolutely killed it, so you're booking them again. But what have been some of the struggles or negatives of being a booker?
oh yeah, the negatives of being the booker is definitely the egos. You can't hide that. People have an ego, even though they don't want to admit it. I have an ego, of course. I don't even though I don't want to admit it. And when I put out a card, I of course discuss it with Hangman a lot. I'd like maybe have 10 different versions before we maybe have something that assembles a card for a show. Um, People become like, why I'm in this spot? Why I'm in this spot? Why I'm not this? Why I'm not this? It's like, yeah, because we're 20 guys and I need to find a spot for everybody. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I can't make everybody happy. I'm trying to, but it's goddamn hard. Sadly, I have a bad example for this show we're gonna have soon. There is a match where some people not friends in the match, so there is some issues there, and I'm trying to find a solution. But again, that's the bad thing of being a booker is that when you have people who is mad of decisions on the card or anything, of course try to find a solution, but it would eventually impact everything else that's on the card.
Yeah,
We talked about this. We have a rumble, 30-man rumble, where there was talks about maybe cutting it down, and that was like, no, we can't do that now because we have like a lot of trainees from CCW who's been told they're going to be in the rumble. If I have to cut down, they are the ones who's going to be removed, and I don't want to disappoint them 2 weeks before the show.
yeah,
And that's where the things is. And the hardship also when you book a show is a booker is also when you have to tell people they're not good enough, because sometimes people aren't good enough. It's not something I've seen a lot of, but I've seen it a few times. And standing with a guy after a show and telling him, mate, this wasn't like that. That wasn't at all what we wanted or expected or anything. The disappointment in the face of a person when you have to tell them that is the hardest thing to go through because you don't want to disappoint people in this
yeah.
business. If you want to see they can thrive in it because that's what people is being told. Oh, you can always make it in wrestling. Sometimes you can. um, I suggest to people who I can see, okay, this is not going to work. You can't be a wrestler for some reason. It could be athletic reasons. It can be conditioning diseases. You maybe have not like terminal disease, but like asthma or something. It
Yeah,
it will impact you so much that I don't want to put people in the risk. So then I suggest you can be a referee, you can be a manager, if you want to be inside, in front of the crowd. If you still want to be part of it, you can help us with the sound, you can help us set up with the show, everything. But wrestler is not for you. It's not a funny message to say to people. I've again done it a few times, but it's never fun to do.
no, I can imagine. So going to the again introduced you as the CCW champion. So again, Pete Phoenix was involved. It was yourself, Pete Phoenix, Carlos Zamora, and Hangman in the Fatal Four Way. So what was that match like? Because when that comes to top talent in Denmark, they're like it's four of the top talents there.
Yeah, it was a match that wasn't actually planned. We had a plan for a tournament for the championship, and the plan originally, and I would like to spoil this a lot, originally was another guy who was going to win the title. I don't want to say who, but it was another guy. People called us out in the comments on the tournament tree. They could easily figure out what's going to happen. So we had to change it up a bit because it's not good to see that the crowd already know what's kind of gonna happen. So,
Yeah,
so I took a radical decision and suggested that the two semi-final matches that we had ended in screwy ways. One in a double countout and the other one in a double DQ. Where the second semi-final actually was a title match. But
yeah,
The crowd hated us. They hated us for real because they were like, "Oh, we're gonna have to wait one more show." Yeah, we have to wait one more show. And the fatal four-way match itself was not chaotic, as you can say. Not that it was I would say a pretty good match. There was of course some spot that got missed. That tends to happen, of course. I got in this spot where I eliminate Hangman. Me and Hangman were at that point unseen best friends, and he snapped on me during the match because he saw that I have pinned him out of the title match, and he attacked me with a chair on my bad knee. So that that hurt for a bit. And being beaten up by Carlos, who's a legit trained MMA guy. He's a legit trained MMA guy, and I've wrestled him a lot. And I can say for this real, when he kicks or hits you for real, you don't feel good afterwards. So I was in this situation of being beaten up by him and Pete Phoenix until they began, of course, to beat each other up because suddenly the title's on the line. Hope I can win it. But it ends up being actually me and Pete Phoenix because Hangman comes in and helps eliminate Carlos by beating him up with a steel chair. I don't know if he saw that they helped me pin him out. I don't know. But he came in, knocked him out with a chair. I pinned him out. And then it was me versus Pete. And you could feel the tension in the crowd that it was, okay, this was the two guys that actually maybe weren't supposed to be in the final, but they're suddenly the ones who's going to fight over the title here.
Yeah.
When I hit the finishing move, got the 1, 2, 3, it was a moment that a lot of people, when they say, I want to win a title in pro wrestling, they have all these imaginations of how it feels like to win a title, just like everybody wants to be WWE champion or something like that. Making that pinfall, getting the championship stuck in your hands where you know that this is not like you being the booker, you had to take it home to protect it. No, this is you who won it. It was a surreal moment for me. I never expect to become a champion in pro wrestling. It was a dream of mine to become a pro wrestling champion, but I never expected it. And then when they told me that they wanted to put the title on me, because back then I wasn't the main booker, I was helping the booker, and he wanted to put the title on me. He decided to do that. He think it would fit well with the current storylines that we had with me and Pete and all this. And getting all this emotions that went through you when you get the title in hand, I had to stop myself from crying. It sounds cheesy, but I had to because it was a big moment.
Yeah.
Then the next show, I got to face Nitro, a great friend of mine, Nitro Green, for the title, and there was a match that Hangman wanted me to have because there were some rumors in the Danish wrestling scene at that point that I didn't deserve to win the title because I wasn't good enough, which is fair. People have their opinions. But then I booked this match with me and Nitro. We got to, I think it was a 15-20 minutes match or something like that. It's eligible on YouTube, so people can go in and watch it. I think it's eligible on YouTube. And this match afterwards, I was told by a lot of people, okay, that changed their minds because I stepped up to Nitro, which I respect a lot. He's been doing it for a hell of a long time, this wrestling thing.
Yeah.
So actually managing to stay with him in a match, be like not a bit under, but actually continue racing level, was something I was very proud of. And then it built up to the finish of me and Pete's storyline, actually, because we were going to face. He came out after my match with Nitro and challenged me for a match at Ragnarok 1.
Was that the last man standing?
Yeah, that's the last man standing match he challenged me for. And that was also a bit of a funny match to have because a last man standing match is tremendously hard to actually build up. Because you stand there as a wrestler, you usually think pinfall submissions and all this stuff, and suddenly you have to think outside that because now you have to incapacitate your opponent for 10 seconds. What the hell can you do? So I was glad it was Pete Phoenix I was working with in that match because, again, a lot of creative stuff could happen with me and him. The finish of the match sadly fucked up. We had planned a finish where his bodyguard at that point, Simon Asfag, was coming in and he was gonna cut me off. I had placed Pete Phoenix on the table and he was gonna cut me off and try to drive me through the table. And he was on the top rope with me on the shoulders, and I was supposed to get down and kind of bulldog him from the top rope onto the table where Pete Phoenix was on. The table tilted. Stupid tables.
Yeah, the tables ruin everything. I always remember there was I think it was like a TLC match, and I was at a Progress show, and it was Wembley, so it was the biggest show in Europe, at that point. And Mark Andrews and Eddie Dennis, and they must have tried getting through the table about 4 different times, including jumping off ladders through it, and it was just bowing, and it was literally as if it was rubber, and the match itself would have been great, but everybody was just so, like, the talent, the fans, everyone was just so frustrated because these tables, it became a laugh. Like, everyone's got frustrated. So I can imagine, like, what's that like to you when you're getting ready for a spot, like, built up to for the match, and then you just see the table go, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Was one of the legs disappeared there and it tilted. Yeah, I actually took it cool because I was on the top rope trying to find my balance with the Simon on the top rope. I just elbowed the guy while I was saying to him, "Stay here, fuck, stay here, stay here." And apparently Pete, I don't know what happened, but he begins not to say spots to me. He begins to shout spots to me. It's like, "Stay on the top rope." It's like, people can hear you, mate. I'm not gonna stay on the top rope when you shout "stay on the top rope" to me. So he focused so much on this table. I already in my mindset it's like, fuck the table. that's my mindset because it tilted. You can't do it. You can't save the situation. it's over. I can't put you on the table. Go on the top rope and drag. That would look so stupid.
I'm glad you said that though, because you see it so much where people get so caught up that this is how it should end,
Yeah.
that it becomes quite comedic, and again, losing that sense of realism that you mentioned you're trying to bring. So how did you? I'm intrigued. Like, how did you change the matchup and adapt to it?
Actually, I just did this. I watched Pete. He collected the table, put it up, put it back on. And he turned his back to me. So I just jumped from the top rope over the table, actually. So people were just like, whoa, he jumped from like balancing on the ropes, kind of a springboard thing over the rope. Pete ran the ropes, hadn't seen me coming back from the top. So when he came down, I just grabbed him in a choke slam. Choke slammed him through the table. And he was like, he became mad at me for this point after that. But I told him I couldn't do anything else. What the fuck should I do? So I took him, choke slammed him through the table. Simon was still on the rope, on the top rope. So I took him and just like landed on him and just threw him from the top rope down on top of Pete Phoenix. So he was buried under his own bodyguards, which is twice, maybe even more than his own weight.
Yeah.
So in kayfabe, he had to move a knocked out big fella who was laying on top of him. He couldn't get up. And I actually think that worked a lot better than the other spot that we had planned, because the other spot could have also been a kind of an unsafe thing to do, because on the table with a big guy going through that.
Yeah.
I think that was actually more unsafe afterward. I thought it more through afterwards, so I was actually very happy. But as mentioned, Pete weren't happy at all for me doing the choke slam, because like, you're doing a choke slam, it's not believable. It's like, yeah, but what else did I have to do? Plus, we're the same size. Hey. It was worth it. Was like Chaos, or a big guy like Chaos or Sack or something I did it with. That would have, of course, made no sense at all. A choke slam, but we're the same size, kind of the same build. So I feel like I could get away with it at that one point. That's what I felt like in the moment. Yeah, it saved it a bit, but still, we weren't, of course, happy about the table fight.
Nah, I bet. What was your match like with Angelico?
Oh, I loved that guy. That was so amazing match. That was yeah. I would actually have waited to comment on that a bit later, but that was the match after me and Pete actually. That was a personal thing for me. I was promised by my promoter that I could choose an opponent just for me, my own opponent. to defend the title against. And I said, okay, I'm gonna look who has contacted us because I was finally given access to the company email.
Because at this time was Angelico living in Spain still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I noticed actually that there was an unread email from Angelico in our email system, which I was surprised about. But it turns out Hangman didn't know who he was. So
Just leaving him on unread. Who's that guy? I'm not reading that.
Exactly. But I knew who he was. I've seen him before. I've seen him in AAA, ICW, and a lot of other places. And I felt like, okay, this could be fun. And there's actually a funny story connected to this booking because I asked Hangman, okay, can I book this guy? I will pay for him myself fully. I did pay him fully out of my pocket because I wanted to wrestle him. I want to have the experience of wrestling a guy who has been in A for 10 years and today is in AEW, and today I've wrestled him. I contacted him on an email. He was interested in working with us and was very interested in coming to that show that we have booked. On that day, it was a summer show, and it was a. That's my dad. Hey.
Hey.
But Angelico, I contacted him and asked, okay, could you make it for his show? I think it was June, beginning of June. He said, yeah, and told me the price and everything, and he wanted to bring his girlfriend because they made a weekend out of it. Actually not a weekend. It came like Tuesday before the show.
Okay.
Took Copenhagen because it was the summer. It was a great summer actually. So he picked the perfect time to do it. But we get everything. It took a few days to confirm, but he confirmed he could do it, and we booked the flights and everything. This day after I got this confirmation from him that he could do the show and everything, he announced he's signing for AEW.
Perfect timing.
So it's like, okay, I just got an AEW star on my show. That went a notch up. So it happened that people all the way up from the north of Sweden actually came to see that show, to see him wrestle. So and the match itself, I was of course nervous as hell. It was against one of the best, I think, technical wrestlers and / high flying wrestlers there is in the world currently. So I was mega nervous, as we say, and I was a bit tight and everything. But he told me after that even though I was a bit tight in the technical wrestling, I didn't miss a spot. I didn't miss anything. He liked my selling, and if I worked hard, he said I could maybe become something. So I was happy. I was happy.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't get injured. And the reason why I say this is because I have a tendency to get injured after every match. Not like serious injuries, but like cuts or
You get a knock. Yeah.
I'm knocked here and there, and the red face because I'm pale as like Seamus pale. Because of my skin color, I tend to get the quite like chopped
Yeah.
sauce, as people say. So I was happy. That was a great experience. Wanted to book him back, but of course it's been a bit hard to do that. So hopefully I can bring him back to Denmark at one point. That would be so effing cool to bring him back. The crowd also loved him. He's have his own special style. I can't take that away from him. Wrestling a guy with that style was also difficult because he's so smooth in what he's doing. So it was a fun and very good learning experience.
Yeah. Well, somebody that you again we mentioned him at the beginning of the show. So you've had Looking Sharp coming over to Denmark. Like, what do you think his influence has been like on the Danish wrestling scene and your experiences with him?
Oh, his influence in the Danish wrestling scene has actually been bigger, I think, than people actually imagine it is. When I met Lou the first time, it was 3 years ago. It was while I had the Irish gimmick in DPW. Chaos asked me if I could pick him up from the airport and bring him to a show in DPW I was booked for. I was like, yeah, no problem, no problem. Take care of him, helping him with all the stuff that he needs to wrestle and all this. And we became friends kind of immediately. Hitched it off, have some of the same interests and all this, and hitched it off quite well. When every time he was booked for a show in DPW, he sleeps at my place and bring him to the shows and take him home and all this, and make sure he gets to the airport, and actually sometimes even book the flight tickets for DPW because then they're sure they booked for the correct dates. Uh, but then when we began to use him in CCW, we had him for a training camp a few years ago where he actually brought Logan and now Jonathan. I think he's renamed himself too. Owen Jax was his previous name.
Yeah.
Um, they came over here. There was like 5 days of training camp with a show, 2 shows at the end actually. On the Saturday we had a double show, afternoon and evening show. Um, And then I made agreement with Lou that, of course, I would try to bring him back, but it needed to make sense to our storylines and all that. Um, then it was about a year before it actually fitted. We had this storyline going with Pete Phoenix and Simon, the can you say boss turned on his bodyguard, and because his bodyguard helped him lose the title match against me, so he turned on him. Um, and we had booked Liu King to face just Pete in a match, just Pete Phoenix in a regular match. It was just the beginning of the building of this storyline. And then we had Simon face a guy called Lunico, a new guy that we had in, who's actually one of the guys I started training with many, many years ago, who returned. And then we decided to put Pete Phoenix and Lunico together as a group. We think that could fit well. So we built this match between Simon and Lunico. That's Lunico cheated, but we didn't show anything with Simon, with Lunico and Pete at that point. But later on the show, when Pete was facing Liu King in this regular match at that point, Lunico comes in at one point and tries to distract Liu. Which doesn't work. He still wins the match, but suddenly you can see Pete and Lunico as a team, and then we have Simon and Liu King who works together. So then there is this one show where Simon faces Pete, where he loses by cheating, and then we booked a tag team street fight, and that was something Liu talked to me when he saw this storyline with Pete and Simon. He told me, okay, if we build this storyline with Pete and Lunico, then at some point they need a tag team match, and then Simon needs a partner. So I could be this mystical partner he calls. It actually ended up being that. So he actually did his own storyline, like 6 months before it even happened, and it was not planned to begin with. So he helped me a lot there. Then he came in and did this tag team street fight with these guys, and they all wanted to have this tag team street fight. I wasn't even supposed to be that, but I told him, okay, I will cut another match who was supposed to be no DQ, and then you can have it on one condition. I was like, yeah, what is that? Yeah, you need a flaming table spot. And they were like, how are we going to do that? Yeah, I know exactly how we're going to do that, so just trust me on this. We're going to make it through. Everything was planned, everything went well. Besides that, 1 hour before showtime, our camera crew told us they couldn't show up. So the show was only recording on cell phone videos. That was a bit disastrous because of the finish, but it still worked. And then Chrissy, Liu King, what do you call him? He helped me from that point on. Also begin to help me book some shows, help me some ideas for storylines, and actually he's my kind of go-to guy when I get contact from people from Scotland or England or generally in the UK. Okay, how is this guy? Because I don't know a lot about these people. I know who some of them are as a wrestler, but as a person, is this a guy I want to work with in Denmark? Because sadly, this summer showed a lot of stuff in the UK wrestling scene, and some of the guys actually were contacting us trying to get bookings. So I'm glad I never booked any of the guys. Other Danish promotions have booked the guys, and I feel like, okay, luckily you found out now and have not booked them since, but I think you need to think a bit more about who you book and how you book, and try to actually being told how is these guys to work with. Because I asked Lou, okay, this guy's contacting me, how is he? And he's very straight. He's like, yeah, he's fine, or he's no, don't do that. And then that's usually what I try to make my mindset with Lou on, and that's also how he impacts wrestling here in Denmark. And he's also trained a lot of our trainees, so he's impacting it very much in CCW.
Oh, that's amazing to hear. So, like, what would, if somebody was going to check out CCW, then you said it's like the underground vibe, but what else, if they tune into and watched like the upcoming like CCW shows and stuff, like what can they expect to see when watching Copenhagen Championship Wrestling?
Yeah, yeah. What they can expect to see is character building, storylines, mixed matches. That means character matches. We have some wrestlers who's not the best wrestlers in the world. They can
Yeah.
maybe do basic moves, but as a character, they're over so majorly with the crowd. So we use them as a character where they get short matches, but the crowd loves them, and when they get to see them, they explode, and then they get the rush that
Yeah.
they want. And then we have these great wrestlers who can do great matches, who are allowed to do great matches, which is everything from technical normal wrestling to high flying luchador libre wrestling. Um, so people can expect it very different styles. We have this Nordic style, a bit hard hitting wrestling,
Yeah.
which is yeah, strong style, as some people would say. So that's also what you get of it. People actually wanting not to tear each other apart, but actually want to hit and actually get the impact and show people this is not funny business. This is something you need to train to be. So we have a lot of mixed kind of wrestling
Yeah.
in an underground setting where we have this very low light, just basically on the ring. We focus a lot on the entrance, have to look like something gorgeous, but still underground feeling. And we have Ragnarok 2 planned for November 7th. I was told by our crew who's working at the venue and all this, and the sound guy, that the entrance on this show will be, I think it was 20 meters from when you get out from the curtain to actually hit the ring.
Right.
So it's going to be a long ass entrance.
Yes, it is.
And that is going to be shined up. So it's maybe that won't be like some people think, oh, that's not underground, but it's inside a work hall, like an old car repair shop kind of
Yeah.
feeling. So that's where the underground feeling comes in also. We try to pick the places where you can see this is industrial buildings,
Yeah.
run down places, graffiti on the walls even. We don't care. If we can fit a wrestling ring in there and there fits a crowd, we will use it. So
Amazing. So, what are your goals for CCW and even yourself as in-ring competitor?
and the goals for me as an in-ring competitor is, my dream is to come to Japan wrestling, do wrestling. That's my big dream. Of course, everybody wants to come to WWE. That, of course, I also want to come to WWE. Right now, I just see the wrestling scene has changed a lot in the last 10 years. So it's not just WWE you can make a living off. You can make a living on pretty much all wrestling all over the world. You just need to, yeah, work hard. So that's why I want to go to Japan, New Japan, All Japan, Dragon Gate,
Yeah.
and eventually also, of course, I would like to work the UK scene. But they have a lot of wrestlers, so Danish wrestlers is not like something that's asked a lot for. But hopefully, when there's this Corona thing is over, yeah, hopefully we can get something done in the UK too for me. Um, CCW's goals is actually to make a living business out of it. We would have this business running on doing pro wrestling shows only, private events, of
Yeah.
public events. All this actually being able to have wrestlers under a formal contract where they get a payment, not just for matches, but maybe also for other stuff, of course. Being able to have guys, for example, like me as a booker, hired, maybe not me, but in the future some other guy, hired as a booker who get paid to book shows and do all this stuff, and not just do this, but other stuff also. Um, and of course, we would like to go from being these shows with 300 people or less to thousands of people. We have this 10-year plan where we have an idea that within 10 years, we will have a show for at least 2,000 people in Denmark. That's our main goal within the next 2 years, 10 years, to have
Amazing.
this kind of show. Of course, it's hard work, but if you don't set goals for yourself, you don't achieve anything. Because then it's just like, oh, we do a wrestling show. Yeah, what's the purpose of you doing a wrestling show?
Yeah.
Just want to do a wrestling show for fun? Great. Do you have a goal with it? We have a goal, and when people find out that our goal is this, they much rather want to work with us because they can feel the passion, not just for me or the promoter, but also for the guys who's inside CCW, the trainees, the sound guy, the video guys, the editing guys, everybody who's working. A lot of the wrestlers have different roles, not just as a wrestler, but running Instagram, running the YouTube page that we have to make sure there comes matches out now and then. So that's because people can see we have this goal, we have this passion of sitting within this time period. We need to be here.
Yeah.
People to be part of it because they can feel it. They can feel, okay, this can succeed. Of course, we took big hits this year, which was sad because the show we had in February, which was the last big show before Corona, we had a crowd of approximately 300 people, and we earned a shitload of money on that show. It was unbelievable. We could definitely feel like, okay, now the ball is begins rolling. And 1 month later, the entire country closes down. That didn't help. So we have different goals with CCW, as you can hear, but our main goal is still getting to 2,000 people within 10 years. Hopefully, it can still be done.
Yeah, no, hopefully, and like really excited to see like what's next for you. And for those that are listening that may not be aware of like the Danish scene or have not seen like CCW before, like where can they find yourself? Where can they find CCW on social media, and how can they watch the shows and support you?
Yeah, we right now don't have any streaming service for any of our shows. This is, of course, something we try to figure out, but it's hard. It's a big market. People can find on CCW on YouTube. They can also find me on YouTube. It's Copenhagen Championship Wrestling, CCW Copenhagen Championship Wrestling on YouTube. Myself is just Sebastian Day, PW Pro Wrestler. You can also find us on Facebook. That's where our main things come out from. That's on Facebook. And also CCW Copenhagen Championship Wrestling for that. And that's also where, again, with me, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram is just Sebastian Day PW. That's how you can find me. We tend to try to, of course, release matches as good as much as possible, but we also working with a lot of stuff here backstage regarding to these matches to make them better experience for our crowd. A lot of the matches that we have on the channels is released without commentating, which I feel is so sad to see because you can't explain storylines with nothing. So that's something we're looking into. That's actually the fun thing that we have Looking Sharp as one of our English commentating people, and then we have our announcer who is called Aaron. Who is, believe it or not, an American.
Okay.
People ask us, why does he speak English? He's an American. He's from America. So I've told him not to speak Danish because when he speaks Danish, you can hear it with a big accent. So it's like big accent. So no, don't do that. Speak American, and it also sounds more convincing when you're out there and it is a wrestling show and you have an American announcer. It's just put that extra spin on it. So actually, on the YouTube CCW Copenhagen Championship Wrestling YouTube, I think you can actually find a pretty awesome match between Nitro Green versus Endakara for Ragnarok last year for the UEFA Cruiserweight Championship. That's an impressive match. I would recommend people to watch. That's something I would recommend people to watch there.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, definitely check that match out. And if you enjoy seeing what you see through Nitro Green and Endakara as well, have a look at my hashtag ScandyGraps playlist on YouTube and find the interviews that I've done with Nitro Green and with Endakara. Sebastian, thank you for coming on. It's been great learning about yourself, learning about CCW, the pains of being a booker and tables falling over and everything of the sorts. It's been really fun chatting with you. So thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome. You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Ah, brilliant. So everybody, make sure you do follow Copenhagen Championship Wrestling. Make sure you follow Sebastian Day as well, and just give Scandigraps, give Danish Wrestling a chance. If you enjoyed this, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit subscribe so you can have a look at all my future interviews. Get that notification as they come through. I've been Johansson. That is Sebastian Day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.